Budgeting is a crucial way to give your money a sense of direction and purpose. This often involves redirecting funds from one area to another, depending on where your financial leaks are and where you need to reinforce financial stability. So let's get you minding your sense today with budgeting. Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, a veteran in this channel, welcome back for yet another exciting episode of Risk, Money and Insurance. And so today we are going to be discussing one of the most essential topics in the personal finance space, and specifically we are talking about budgeting today because this is so important. Your money needs to have direction. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming and for clicking on this video, because it shows me that you are willing to take a step towards financial wellness. So congratulations for actually doing that. So what is a budget? We're going to talk about that, and then we're definitely going to talk about some of the mistakes that I made while trying to budget over the years. And lastly, we will then get into a very simple budgeting exercise. I believe that any person can literally draw up this kind of budget because that's how simple it is. So let's start with, what is a budget? A budget is a way for you to bring vision to your money. I actually stole that from someone. It's a way to bring vision to your money. So you need to take charge of your money and direct your money towards the things that matter to you the most. And I think a lot of us make the mistake of just spending impulsively without thinking about, but do I want my money to go to this direction, or do I want my money to go to this area or not? So it's quite important to identify, how much you're getting on a monthly basis, like on the reals, your income from your salary or your business, your side hustles, all of that money, allowances, if you have girlfriend allowance or whatever, how much is coming in per month into your account, or like as your income every single month. And then you need to now decide, how am I going to distribute this income that comes into my account every single month? And that's where budgeting begins. So today in this video, it's going to be a very simple budgeting exercise for someone who ideally just started with work, because they don't really have a lot of responsibilities, not enough, okay, they don't have a lot of responsibilities relatively. They don't necessarily have a lot of subscriptions. They're still trying to apply for subscriptions and all of that. So I would just try to, I'm just going to try to bring a framework that they can use to budget. And of course, contents of this video do not constitute as financial advice. If you do need financial advice, please contact a registered financial advisor, and they have to be registered with the FSCA, the Financial Conduct FSCA, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. That's my regulator. Why am I forgetting my regulator? But anyways, they have to be registered with the FSCA in order for them to be, registered to give financial advice. But anyways, let's get into what are some of the mistakes that, I've made in the past around budgeting. And I try to keep a budget like every single month. So I have spreadsheets all the way from 2020 when I started working. I have spreadsheets of like my budget. When I was in university, I don't think I really had a budget, but that was also because I was eating at res. I didn't have to worry about electricity, accommodation and all of that. My bursary paid to the university right away. So the money that I was really dealing with on a monthly basis was, my own allowance in terms of the food that I have to buy and all of that, which was very structured, because one cool thing that my friends and I did when we were in final year of university, which really worked wonders for us to not only eat healthy but to save so much money and time, was to do meal preps. So it was the three of us, it was myself and two other guys. Shout out to you guys, you literally saved my cents in university, Vatanda and Morisa. So we would, on a Sunday, we would cook. So one person would be responsible for the starch, another person for the veggies, another person for the protein, and we would rotate. So you would buy what you are supposed to serve that particular week, and then you would cook enough for 3 people. Then we will come together and split the food. That was like absolutely awesome. And between the 3 of us, there was a chef, of course, and then there were like mini chefs, and like beginners. But it worked really well for us in that we were able to eat healthy. I think for me that was the important part. Like, we were controlling what we were eating instead of relying on takeaways, because takeaways do chow your money. So that really worked wonders. And I knew, like, on a weekly basis I would be spending maybe around 500 or whatever. So that's sort of how my budget was structured. But when I started working, I realized that, okay, I'm no longer just dealing with like 2,000 rands a month. I am now dealing with like tens of thousands. I'm not going to mention how much I was getting paid, but it wasn't like the gross was good, the net shocked me, but it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. But I realized that it was actually way more than 10 times what I was like managing on a monthly basis as a student. And I realized that I needed to take care of my finances and all of that. And one of the things that I began to do was to draw up a budget. Hence I have the spreadsheets from like 2020 moving onwards. And the most important thing that I learned from that journey of using spreadsheets was, at first my budgets were not really realistic. I'm that girl who thinks I can save like 70% of my income and spend only 30%. Like, I would do that. I am that girl. And every single month I will set that goal to say I'm saving 70% of my income and I'm only going to spend, 30%. And at the time I was sharing an apartment, right, in Midrand. So it was just like, this is actually really doable because you're sharing an apartment. So my rent was pretty low, like 3.5 or whatever. So I thought, I can actually do it. Like, it just has to be the rent and the transport money and, the food, contributing towards the food or whatever household things that have to be done, like utilities and stuff. So I had really crazy expectations of how much I can actually save on a single like month or whatever. Not realizing that there are some other expenses, like, you in your first year of work, you're building up your wardrobe, you don't have a lot of things. I had already bought the bed and whatever from my savings from university, but it wasn't like enough to set me up for the world of work. I still needed to build like an emergency fund. I didn't have one because I had exhausted my savings while moving from Cape Town to Johannesburg and like securing an apartment deposit and whatever. So I really struggled with drawing up a realistic budget at first, because I always thought I could save more than I can actually afford to save. So every single month there will be a thing of, you will take that money and then transfer it to a savings vehicle or an investment vehicle, and then before the month end you realize that there's something that you need and at that point you've transferred all your money and you are like, you didn't really plan your things well. So I would then need to go back to wherever I saved my money, transfer like a portion of it back. And then I think it happened for the first 2 or 3 months, and I was like, okay, this is not working. Ideally, you would like to save 70% of your income. But where you are right now, baby girl, you don't have a trust fund, you are establishing yourself. So you cannot expect to be saving 70% of your income. It's just impossible. So try, every single month to push yourself to save a little bit more than, what you would normally save. So I started with like, okay, I can start with like 15% and then stretch it to like 20% as I, buy furniture, buy all the other things that were needed for my first year of work. So it's important to be realistic. And I believe that it's not only people that start working who do that. I've had conversations with a lot of people that say, listen, bro, like, I save, but then before the month ends, I go back and I take out my savings again, because they feel like they haven't really catered for other things. So there are some things that do pop up during the month that force them to actually do that. So the first and foremost important thing is, let your budget be very, very realistic. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time. It has to be realistic. You need to be realistic around, this is my income, these are my expenses that I know I'm not running away from these expenses, and ensure that those two align. And out of, okay, all the expenses I have, this is how much I can afford to save per month. And one thing that people don't budget for is things like your entertainment. You need to put your entertainment in your budget, and also put in money that you're going to need from one payday to the other. Say after buying groceries and all of that, you want to go out, entertainment and all these things, you want to buy people gifts and all of that. Budget for those things, so that even after transferring your money into your savings, you know that you still have residual amount of money that you can use until the next payday. That's the whole point. Otherwise, if you say, okay, I'm just going to pay for my basics, and then I'm not going to set aside money that I will use from one payday to the next, then it's like, okay, what will you be eating? You need bread. You might run out of fruits or whatever or something during the month. How are you going to buy that? You might need more petrol, things like that. So you need to be very, very realistic about your budget. In as much as you've got great ambitions, it's important to still be realistic and maybe stretch yourself towards those great ambitions to save like 50% of your income as time goes. And another advantage is, if you are like, you've just started working, you can literally structure your lifestyle such that it allows you to save 50% from the start. And if you are able to do that, then it's like over time, it becomes really easy to maintain that same lifestyle and still be able to save like 50% of your income if it's possible. So it's those little things. Another one was just around, not tracking my spending. And that's when I started, venturing into, okay, what about using apps like your FinArt, your 22/7, in order for them to like give me a summary of my spending and all of that. But what I didn't really like about that is because I have 3 main bank accounts. I don't know which one's main, but like I've got 3 bank accounts and I use them for different things. So it's like it was capturing information from one but not the other. There was stuff that we're missing. So I wasn't really getting a full picture of what was happening in my finances. And that's when I decided, you know what, we need to have a family meeting, financial meeting before the next payday, like a week before the next payday. I sit down and I try to consolidate all my 3 bank accounts to say, get the statement from this one. There's one major one that I use for transactions, and there's other ones that there may be 1 or 2 transactions that come out of there, but mainly like it's mainly like savings and other things. So I will be like, okay, let me sit down a few days before payday, sit down and say, okay, how much did you spend on groceries? How much did you spend on your entertainment? How much were your utilities for this month? How much was this? Debit orders, funeral covers, life covers, all these things. Like, just write them down there and like do the sums in terms of how much did I actually spend on these particular items, because it becomes really important to track, to say my budget said I will spend 200 rands, I ended up spending 1,000 rands. What really happened? What went down? Was it a once-off thing, or it's like a recurring thing, so I need to adjust my budget? So, or do I need to like cut down on that particular expense? So it becomes important to do like that tracking exercise to sort of understand why and what's happening. And then the last one was just around, prioritizing my savings. So I think I kind of also feel like at first there was a bit of I will save and invest what is left, until I realized that there will always be that extra thing that I need, that extra this that I need on a month-to-month basis. So instead of being reactive, like literally telling myself that, listen, we're gonna save 5,000 rands. After that, whatever we need to do, whatever we need to do has to come from the remaining amount that we have in our bank account. So those are some of the mistakes that I've made, which have resonated with other people that I've had conversations with. And maybe you can also put your own, mistakes around budgeting in the comment section below, because I believe that there's so much that we try to do, but we end up not succeeding because sometimes we're just not realistic, or sometimes there are other things that we haven't really catered for. But anyways, moving on now to the budgeting, right? An easy way for you to create a budget, and it is what we call the 50-30-20 rule. And I don't think this is the first time that I'm chatting about this rule on this channel. I have touched on it, but just in passing. And today I want us to really do this in detail, talk about this in detail, because it becomes really important. If you have a salary of 10,000 rands, then what you're essentially saying is that you're going to use 5,000 rands for your needs. That's food, that's utilities, that's rent, whatever that you have to do. It's going to be 5,000 rands, and then the 30%, so the 3,000, that can go towards your wants. So things that you want to do, like new clothes, new gadgets, you wanna go out with friends, or you wanna go take someone out on a date, or you wanna do this, then it will fall under that 50%. And then the last part is the 20%, right? So 20% goes towards your financial goals. And this may include, savings for an emergency fund. This may include, you paying off your debts quickly, or you investing towards your kids' education. All these financial goals that you have from the beginning of the year, or from the resolutions that you made at the beginning of the year. So it becomes really easy. But I was just sitting down and reflecting on this rule to say, in as much as it was meant for, middle income people, in order for them to allocate expenses, their income appropriately amongst the expenses that they have, I realized that the cost of living in South Africa is actually really high. Petrol has gone up again, rent is expensive, food is expensive. There's a lot that's happening at this point in time, and I was like, maybe a good and a realistic adjustment would be, 60% goes towards your needs, and then 20% can go towards your wants, and 20% can then go towards your financial goals, so your savings, your investments, whatever you have to do, you saving up for a deposit for a car or an apartment or whatever that you want to do. And then on months where things are really tricky, what you have to sacrifice, I know a lot of people sacrifice financial goals for wants, but what you have to sacrifice is your wants for the financial goals that you have. You must never allow your financial goals to be compromised by your wants. So where things are rough, take away rather from the wants, rather than taking away from the savings or the financial goals that you have. And I know a lot of us, we would rather take away from the savings because we need to live, right? We need to have that soft life and all of that. But it's quite important that you realize that you need to be able to pay yourself first. You need to cater for the financial goals that you have, because otherwise you will end up postponing this thing every single month. So it's quite important to not just postpone your financial goals, but to prioritize them on a month-to-month basis. And just also on budgeting, especially around the 50-30-20 rule, is the fact that it's a great sort of a cheat sheet for you to be able to draw up a budget when you're starting out as a grad or whatever, and you can build that culture of saving or that culture of investing on a month-to-month basis. And you don't necessarily need to know how to invest immediately. There are companies that can help you with that. So it becomes quite important for you to just know what vehicles are available out there, so you can think about tax-free savings accounts. You can think about easy equities, brokerages like Absa brokerages, or Standard Bank investments, the investment accounts that they have, your Allen Gray, your Alexandra Forbes, your PSG, all these investment companies or banks that have got investment divisions. You can consider those at first, and then maybe if you want to be advanced, then you can learn your way through easy equities and stuff. All these direct investment vehicles that are available. So we have come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for coming and for listening up until this point. If you did listen to the very end, drop me a yellow heart in the comment section, and we will be continuing with the budgeting series in the next coming weeks. And I just thought it would be important to just start with, how do you budget as a first timer or as a first year of work grad? How do you budget as a first time, or as somebody who hasn't done budgeting before? Where do you start? How do you structure? How much should you be investing? How much should you be saving? All of that stuff. I thought the 50-30-20 rule will be an amazing way to start the budgeting series. And then from there we will continue. I think next week the exercise will be a bit involved. As I release the next video, we will be getting into budgeting outside the rules of thumb and sitting down with those bank statements and letting them determine the size of our budget. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you guys so much. I'll see you in the next video. Oh, bye.